Hey guys, Delon here from Powerbrake. I'm with Daniel, the owner of Tiny Rig. Tiny Rig's based in California, and we've just done a super exciting fitment today. It's the first one in the US on a Grenadier. Daniel, tell us about this truck. You've got a bit of a history because this is the second one you guys are building.
Yeah, so we built another Grenadier. A customer wanted us to build him either the same thing or pick it up. And so that went home, and I drove this back to the shop probably 3 weeks ago or so. And so we're just starting to dig into it and essentially rebuild the exact same thing, but we have a Powerbrake kit available now. So that's actually the second modification we've done now to it.
No, excellent. So enjoy the video that we've just made here at Tiny Rig, and it walks through the whole process of what we're doing with the Grenadier brake system. The Grenadier has been a really exciting project for us, with the vehicle built to go off-road right from the beginning, from design up. It really sort of goes with our product because we design everything from the ground up for 4x4 enthusiasts. Powerbrake is a niche manufacturer. We don't do anything else. We only manufacture 4x4 brakes. So we don't do sports cars, we don't do street cars. We are focused on four-wheel drive brakes. Everything's manufactured in South Africa in our own factory. The company is 22 years old, and so we're really looking forward to just showing you and walking you through this big brake kit for the Grenadier.
Awesome. So I've known you now 5 years or so, and I was introduced to the product when I started Tiny Rig, and we were doing Tacoma kits, 4Runner kits. You guys now make other kits and have expanded the product range, but I'm excited. There's other kits on the market, and I know you don't like to speak poorly of other products, but everything we've ever done with you has always wowed the customer. I know you get the text messages from customers saying your brakes saved their lives. So thank you for that, genuinely. It's rad. Like, it was really, really cool. I think every single time we drive a vehicle that has power brakes before and after, you see a massive difference. So with this truck, as soon as we got it, and having driven my other vehicles that have the big brake kit on it, we knew immediately that it needed it before we added weight. So now we're building these, we're building the roof converted vehicles, adding a pretty significant amount of weight. They're already heavy to begin with, and you can just tell that they're underperforming. So can you walk through the specific characteristics that make your kit unique specifically for off-roading, but also why it improves the braking system overall?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think first thing, let's go through the kit. The kit is a complete bolt-on solution. It comes with everything you need to do the installation on the truck. So I'm going to start with the rotors first, and then we'll move through the different other components on there. Number one, what we're starting with is the original rotor is a 315 millimeter, 12.38 diameter rotor. It's not directionally vaned. So where we go immediately is to a 350 millimeter, 13.7 inch rotor. So if I hold this here for you, you can see the massive difference just in the size of the rotor, okay?
So what is that, real quick, layman's terms, what does that do for real world use?
So I think if you look at the rotor, firstly from a size perspective, as a storage unit. So if you think of a rotor as a glass of water, what we're doing is we're dumping energy and heat into the rotor, and then basically we're giving you a larger storage unit to be able to manage that heat, okay? The next thing, which is absolutely critical, is the way a rotor works is it cools from the inside out. Very few people, or a lot of people, don't know that. So what we want to do is we want to suck air into the center of the rotor and then flow it over the vanes to bring that airflow down to manage temperatures, okay? And I always tell people, vehicles to some extent are designed by engineers, but they are built by accountants. So the reason why you don't have the directional cooling vanes on any OE rotor other than super performance cars like Porsches and that is because it costs additional money in the mold. So instead of building one mold, you then need to build two casting molds. And then that means for Powerbrake, we have a left and a right so that we can have the directional cooling vanes in. So that's a really critical part. And where a big brake kit really comes into its own is with all the weight that we're doing on overland and 4x4 vehicles, plus the bigger wheel and tire packages, that rotational mass creates a lot of energy, or requires a lot of energy that then creates a lot of heat. And it's the same with the additional weight, and it's exponential. So number one, we want to give you a bigger storage unit. But number two is we want to flow air into the center and through those veins to bring those temperatures down. So visualize a centrifugal pump. We're getting air sucked into the center and then flowing it over, bringing those temperatures down.
Yeah, makes sense. What about drilled rotors on a vehicle?
So drilling started by Porsche in the 1980s. More and more the technology has gone away from that. So we do see in the market a lot of things drilled with lots of holes in them. We believe for a 4x4 vehicle that we prefer not to have drilled rotors, mainly for two reasons. We don't want little stones and stuff to catch in the drill ports and then damage your pad material. The second thing is, and we'll get to brake pads now, is the technology is changing a lot. So the way it works now, in the old days, the brake pads used to work by, let's call it abrasion. So the pad used to wear into the rotor and essentially against each other, that created the friction, okay? But the technology has changed now that the pad actually deposits material onto the rotor surface. We call it filming. So it actually lays material down onto the rotor surface and then the friction occurs on this film. So let's say in the past we used to work by abrasion, now we're working by adhesion. And the big positive of that is the performance. Essentially the two products are now not working against each other, but they're working with each other. And so what happens is the performance steps up a lot and the mileage steps up a lot. So like often on Powerbrake pads, 60, 70,000 miles on a heavy 4x4 in a big brake kit is very common for us.
For context, guys, my 2017 Tacoma, which is about 7,000 pounds, I was going through brake pads every 10 to 15,000, trying different stuff, OEM, Duralast, Gold, Platinum, all that stuff, 10 to 15,000. I still have the first pads and rotors that we put on my truck 5 years ago. I think we're about 60,000 miles later.
We have a customer with a very heavy 4Runner, 7,000 pounds, plus they tow an off-road trailer. They're full-time in the rig, and we've been using them as just a test case because of the mileage that they do. They've done South America, the whole of North America, Canada, etc. And they're over 75,000 miles now on the first set of brake pads.
And that's, I think, for context of price, right, which we'll get into, the longevity of the pad, right? There's cost savings in that, especially if you're not someone who does the install yourself and you go somewhere else and you're not changing your pads and your rotors. Like this, eventually over time, will potentially save you money. Like I genuinely look at it that way. It's,
you know, I think a big brake kit is an investment. It's an investment into safety, it's an investment into the truck, and it's an investment into everybody around you if the truck is heavy.
Sure.
So we do look at cost per mile for sure. But once you make that investment, the product needs to work. So number one, it needs to perform. And then number two, we want to give as much longevity as possible because our vehicles do mileage.
Yep.
So the technology is moving all the time. And that's why we consistently are always testing on the brake dyno, on vehicle testing to make sure we can give that performance and mileage.
great. So pad, rotor.
Yeah, so let's just finish up with the rotors. What I wanted to show you is obviously we have the curved vanes that we discussed there, but then every single Powerbrake rotor has got the temperature measurement tabs on it. We call it the MRT system. So basically what we measure is we measure the temperature range. So it will hold the highest temperature that the rotor has ever been to. So the way it works is the color tabs actually change to like a white color, and then you'll know what temperature your brake system's been to. Usually on 4x4 vehicles, we don't run into a temperature problem because of the efficient cooling. But if something goes wrong, if you were wheeling in Colorado and you damaged something on the vehicle, we had a customer recently where they had to drive down the mountain and they were dragging a lot on the brakes because the whole suspension had buckled from hitting a rock. Then we were able to tell him immediately, no, your temperature was well within specification. We could look at that and then make informed decisions. So you'll also see on the calipers, I'll get to that, we also have temperature measurement. So again, just taking all the details to be able to build a fully off-road 4x4 brake kit.
Awesome.
Okay, so let's move from the rotor to the caliper. So this is the original Grenadier caliper. It's a 2-piston caliper. We go from there to a 6-piston caliper, okay? And there are a couple of really important points that we do again for the off-road side. So number one, you'll see this big bridge over the top. Hydraulically under pressure, the caliper wants to spread itself open. And so what we do is we have this big bridge on the top that gives rigidity. Rigidity is really important because it also talks through modulation, okay? And I'd like to say here, when it comes to braking, the brain plays a big part in stopping the vehicle. So the more confidence that you have in the brake system, the more confidence you have in stopping the vehicle and the better that you can stop the vehicle. So the way the pedal feels is really critical for us as a brake system manufacturer. So we pay a lot of attention to how the vehicle feels. We don't want to overbrake it or overwhelm the tires. So what we want to do is we want to transfer the weight and let you have that control when you get onto the pedal, that you're able to know what's happening down at your foot. And it's very visual on a motorcycle or on a mountain bike where you're two-finger braking as you come down a technical hill. Well, essentially a 4x4 works the same way. We want to give that brake modulation and that control. So that's another reason why we also do braided lines. You will see over here, every single kit comes with the braided lines already included, and that'll also help give you that modulation. It's not going to stop the vehicle any faster. It's going to give you that confidence and modulation to not overwhelm the tires, to make sure it's a very linear brake feel. So that's why this big bridge at the top is very critical. Then moving forward, and this is a really important part when you come to the Grenadier, is we machine on the billet aluminum away on the front here, okay? Where that's critical is we want to be able to fit under all different wheels and different wheel sizes. So this is where we're very different to some of the other kits that we've seen on the market for Grenadiers, is they require you to go up to an 18-inch wheel. We have designed our 6-piston kit, 350 millimeter, 13.7-inch rotors, and we fit under the Steely wheels, and we fit under aluminum OEM wheels. So both of those, we fit the 6-piston caliper in. We've seen one or two other products that are possibly coming to market, but they've dropped down to a 4-piston caliper. So it's the original 2. Some of the other guys are offering a 4. We stick with the 6-piston caliper, but we still fit under the 17-inch wheels. And that's really critical because we want to give you options if you're running the original wheels. So that's a really critical part of that. Then another part that plays into the way we can design the caliper is we bolt from the back to give additional wheel clearance. So that allows that too. Then moving over to this side, every single caliper's got temperature measurements on it. So these tabs will again hold the highest temperature that the caliper's ever been to. So it allows us to know what's occurred in this caliper if we ever need to look at it and understand what we're doing in brake systems. And I think you once said to me, not many products in our overland or four-wheel drive industry actually give feedback.
Correct.
Which is so nice, you know, to actually know, we know what's going on. We can always understand what's going on because temperature is our enemy in a brake system. So that's really a really great feature. Then this is really important. If you see how we've done here, every single bleeder screw is completely recessed away. So what we want is if a stone or a rock or anything comes through your wheel, your mate's driving in front of you on a dirt road, they're throwing stones down the road, they're coming through the wheels, anything like that. We don't want this kind of situation. If you look here at the OE caliper, that bleeder screw is very, very exposed. And that's definitely a weak point in the caliper. If a rock or something comes through here, it can rip off that bleeder screw and you have a problem, okay? So everything recessed, my apologies, away. This comes really from our history in, for example, the Dakar Rally. About 50% of the Dakar Rally field run Powerbrake. Dakar is the toughest race in the world, or one of the toughest races in the world. It's 2 weeks, it's over 4,000 miles, and we develop the brake kits and test the brake kits there, and then whatever we learn there, we bring back to our 4x4 and overland customers, okay? And that was something that was learned in the rally where we could see that could be a weak point on a caliper.
The porting too, right? Like I see all the porting's hidden here, but some of the other kits have external porting.
Correct. So
Same thing.
Correct. So what we see is often on a four-wheel drive truck and on some of the Grenadier kits is essentially guys who are developing big brake kits are adapting street kits, maybe from a BMW or something like that, and then adapting it to a 4x4 application. And the first thing we see that is one of the most dangerous things on a street caliper is there's an external crossover tube that sits at the bottom here of the caliper. Now you can imagine if there's a crossover tube that's exposed sitting here, any stone or anything coming through can damage that crossover tube, and essentially you bleed out on the side of the trail or on the side of the dirt road. So that for us is always where we can see if someone designed the brake kit from the bottom up to be for a 4x4, or essentially they took something from a street application and adapted it to fit on a 4x4.
Typically when that's done too, the modulation is not where it needs to be, correct?
I wouldn't say that, Daniel. I would say that's more about a risk factor than it is a feeling factor.
Not necessarily the adapting the kit from another vehicle and kind of putting it on a Grenadier, I guess is what I'm referring to.
Yeah, I think it would depend on how the hydraulic calculations are done.
Okay.
And so that's another good point that you bring up. So you'll see the different piston sizes. Our kit is hydraulically engineered. You do not need to change the master cylinder. You do not need to make changes to the hydraulic system. We have engineered it correctly so that it is specific to the vehicle. We have done all the engineering. Essentially what we need is you guys bolt it on the vehicle, bleed it, and then after that, the product will work. So in the old days, when you look at the Jeeps, guys used to be, if you do this, then you do that. Then we don't,
valves, all
correct, we don't want any of that. We want to work with the original hydraulic system and make sure that our calculations are done correctly. So I'd like to just show you another thing on the inside here. Every single caliper has stainless steel pistons, not aluminum. And the reason for that is stainless steel transfers heat a lot slower than aluminum does. So if you consider we've got temperature developing at the brake system, especially if you're heavy and you're coming down a mountain pass, the fluid is sitting in the caliper. So what we want to do is we want to avoid that fluid from boiling. And so stainless steel will transfer the heat a lot slower towards the brake fluid than an aluminum piston will. So that's something that, again, we put in for a very specific reason. And then if you look inside our calipers, we don't have external dust boots. And that's something, again, which you see a road caliper will always have that. And of course, it's important not to let dust and muck in towards the pressure seal. The way we do it is we do an internal wiper seal. So essentially, if we look here, the pressure seal is sitting in the caliper, and then there's an internal wiper seal away from the surface. And the reason being is because it's an off-road vehicle, what happens is as you drive down as the temperature goes up, those external wiper seals get brittle. And then what happens is they actually get damaged and they crumble away. Now you off-roading or you on a dirt or going through a river crossing on a dirt road, and all that muck's going in towards the pressure seal. So what we want to do is we don't want that to happen, so we do an internal wiper seal. The caliper then comes in two different anodize. We do the red anodize, and then we do a hard anodize. The reason we don't paint is because after time, the temperature, if you look at a red painted caliper, it gets that brown orange look, looks terrible.
Sure.
What we do is the red anodize will hold its anodize. After, I think on your Tacoma, if we look at the calipers 5 years later, they look as new. Hard anodize is the toughest surface treatment you can do on aluminum. So if you're in a very heavy snow area, in an area where there's a lot of muck and dirt on the road because of the weather and all the stuff that they do, I would always recommend at that point to go to the hard anodize, but it's really a preference to that. We spoke a little earlier about brake pads, but just to show, this pad is our compound called PB05. It really is a special compound. The pad is big, so it allows that friction material surface area, and it is something that we put a lot of pride in the kit to do that. And then all the things like the brackets come in the kit. Little touches. We've done the inserts, so where you're putting in your caliper mounting bolts, they already have the insert in. So just going through every single detail to make sure that the kit's special and that you get that benefit of all of these features.
Awesome. Cool. Give me, in as few words as possible, why a Powerbrake kit for any vehicle, not necessarily just Grenadier, if you're an off-roader?
if you're a 4x4, if you're a family that enjoys camping, if you're off-roading, I think where it really comes down to is because we are so focused on designing the product from the ground up for the 4x4 community. We're part of it. We drive the trucks. Coming from South Africa, it's just part of our nature. And for that reason, we've put in all the details and that to allow when you drive the vehicle, it really is a different experience. And I always tell people there are a number of things that give the truck its drivability. If you look at tires, suspension, and brakes, that changes the driving feel to a vehicle, you know? And I think that is something where we've put all this design in, and we've built a kit that you can daily drive it. So being in California where we are today and that traffic coming from South Africa, that's obviously always a little bit of an eye-opener for me. But where you want to daily drive it and just drive to work and back, the kit performs amazingly. When that highway suddenly comes to a stop, you can bring the car down to a safe stopping distance. But then if you're up in the mountains and you've got to come down multiple stops and that temperature is building on it, the big brake kit comes into its own. So it really allows all different things to allow you to drive your vehicle safely.
Great. So one other thing I want to call out for the people watching is this is a front brake kit. There is no rear. Can you discuss why that is?
So generally on the 4x4 brake kits that we do, we always say invest up front. 80% of the braking occurs up front, 75 to 80%. And really what we want to do with the rear, as you get onto the brakes, the weight will transfer itself forward. Okay. And that's, again, very visual on a mountain bike or on a motorcycle. Sure. Essentially, a 4x4 is doing the same thing. So what happens is, as the weight transfers to the front, the rear has an important role, and it's balancing that vehicle. But then, essentially, most of the braking is taking place up front. So we always say, invest the money up front. That is where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. And that's where the braking is occurring once that weight transfer has taken place.
Awesome. So I think let's pick the camera up. Let's point out some of that stuff actually on the vehicle. We have it here right behind us, but where the camera's positioned, it's going to be a little bit difficult. But DeLon, let's show off some of the stuff that's in there. Point out some of those details on the vehicle. Go over just a general install of kind of what's happening.
Excellent.
So we just wrapped up fitting this, and we got to put the Steely on. We got to put the alloy wheel on. But let's look at kind of what we changed. I think it's going to be pretty obvious, but let's look at some of the small details.
Perfect. So we've gone to the larger rotor, so 13.7 inch, 350 millimeter diameter rotor. So we've got that in place. What's really nice about the Grenadier is it doesn't have a really big dust plate, because sometimes we have to cut away the dust plate. With the Grenadier, that's not required. It's just got a small little dust plate, so we fit on without any modification. It's a direct fit kit. We've bled the system, so if you have a look here with the bleeder screws, we've got 2 bleeder screws versus the Grenadier's 1. We want to get as much air out as possible to give you that pedal modulation and that confidence in the brake system. So the bleeding's been done. The braided lines are installed, so we've got the braided line. The existing original braided line that comes from the body down to the knuckle, that stays in place, and then we adapt from the caliper to the braided line that was originally there. So you've got the braided lines continued on. The pads have been installed. We've actually done a really nice change to the calipers on the way we tension the pads. So that's all been done. So you can buy this online from Tiny Rig, and you can install this at home. You can see it's really not a difficult installation. Essentially, the bleeding is the only complicated part, but
Just
everything...
need 2 people, unless you have the tools.
Well, generally you would have one person working the pedal and another person then, doing the bleeder screws. We do say, and this is really important if you fit any actually brake caliper afterwards, is what happens is we ask for a second bleed. And actually someone like Toyota, if you look at their installation guide, they call for the same thing. So what happens is, obviously we want to get as much air out as possible. We then recommend that you put the wheel back on, take the vehicle for a drive for 15, 20 minutes, and essentially just get the bubbles out, get the bubbles to come and sit under the bleeder screw, okay? And then bring it back, jack it up or put it on the lift, drop the wheel off one more time and do what we call a service bleed. Just crack each bleeder screw again, couple of pedal modulations, and then what you'll see is then the fluid, you sometimes don't even see a big bubble, you just see a discoloration in the fluid. That is actually air coming out. And then from there, we want to do 180 miles of just normal town driving, allowing that pad, as we spoke about earlier, that pad to lay down the film and lay down this material onto the rotor, and then find a really quiet, safe place. Make sure that it's nobody around you. And then what we want you to do is 6 hard stops. So one after the other, 65 down to like 35, get the speed back up, 65 down to 35. That'll just do that final filming process. And then after that, the kit is ready to go. It's not like you won't have any brakes while you're bedding it in. It's just, we want to give you that feeling, that wow factor. And what we often see about with 4x4 owners like ourselves and you is we've got in our mind that this vehicle is really heavy. I've got bigger wheel and tire. So I'm very cautious, rightly so. The brain is correct in saying, I need to give space. I need to be careful on the brakes, etc. You know that the vehicle's heavy. What you'll see with the big brake kit is that changes totally. We actually say to the guys, drive more normally. The brakes actually enjoy some life. They have a personality, like a suspension, like a tire. And you use them for what you've paid for them and what you've done to the vehicle. You can actually enjoy the vehicle a lot more by using the performance brakes and not being coddling them too much.
Sure. So one thing I want to point out, guys, is with Tiny Rig, I started this because a lot of the shops I was going to, things weren't meeting the needs that I had. So I would go to a shop, have work done, see the work that was done, and it was like 90% of what I wanted. So I'd go home and I'd finish the last 10%, right? And the work that we do, we get it to that 100% point. I have a very heavy vehicle, and I mean, this is obviously a new platform that is heavy too, but that Tacoma that I referenced earlier, my wife loves driving it. She has a first-gen Tacoma, and she really loves driving my third-gen Tacoma, but every time I was handing my wife the keys, I would literally say, I'm not making this up, is remember it's heavy. And it's because I had driven it every single day. I had become accustomed to knowing that I need more time to brake, driving more conservatively. And since I've put the brakes on, here's the keys, right? That fear is gone. And I don't want to necessarily disagree with what you said about like it's got that feel that's unique at like a suspension thing, but I will say I've always described to people when I put the brakes back on the Tacoma, it felt like it should, not like it was lacking in something, right? So it was almost like I forget about it, take it for granted, and then I get in a vehicle that doesn't have it anymore, and it's like, oh yeah, there's no power brakes in this thing. It's a completely different type of setup. So the Ram I drive, we've talked about brakes for that in the past, like it's lacking. It's got a 40-inch tire on it. This vehicle, a lot of people say it doesn't stop very well. Some people feel like it stops fine, but I think one of the things I want to stress is that first time you really need to get on it, the stopping power is a holy crap moment of I've never felt this much power in brakes before. And I remember exactly where I was driving down the street on my way to my house. A ball rolled out in front of me and I was in my big heavy truck and I slammed my foot out of reaction because I saw the kid going. And it was like, oh my gosh, the truck just completely stopped, right? And we've talked Brian at Goose Gear. He's got the Land Cruiser that you guys did a brake kit for. He locked up the tires on the freeway going 70. I've jumped the truck on dirt roads. I've locked up the tires. Like there's so much power behind these things, but it feels normal on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and you know, the whole thing again is we want to give that safety. We want to make sure that the vehicles give you that confidence. And there's so much detail in it. We don't want to overwhelm the tires. We want to make it a very linear feel to give you that control and modulation. So there's so much detail that goes into our brake kit. And it comes back down to, I know I've said this a few times, but I think it's important, is we don't do anything else. Powerbrake manufactures brake systems for four-wheel drive trucks. That's what we do. We're not a big company. We're a niche manufacturer. We're very focused, very specialized. And I think when you have that in a company and you have that as a culture, you know, you guys don't build M3s here. You build 4x4s. You build overland vehicles. It's the same thing for us. We build for 4x4 trucks. Whether you're going to do a Baja event, whether you're going to do a camping event, whether you're going to do a roof conversion on a Grenadier, that's what it's about for us. And I think that sort of focus and speciality allows us to build the level of product that we do.
Sure.
And look, it is an investment. We understand this is, I joke, this is ask your wife money, right? It's not something you just take out. It's a couple of $1,000s to fit the big brake kit and to do the big brake kit. So we understand it's an investment from our customer side, but in the same way, we respect that investment and we respect that they're having to invest in their vehicle, and we want to give them a product at that correct level that does what we say it will do.
Awesome. So guys, DeLon has become a good friend since I started working with him. His company is a small family business that has been doing extremely focused braking systems for 25 years or so.
Yeah.
Right. You got a good human behind the brand that's going to always respond. I've had customers here that have questions at 7:00 p.m. Pacific time, and I can text them on the East Coast and I get responses and put it on speakerphone with customers. So it's a big investment, but you're getting the level of service, you're getting the product. So thank you for doing this. Appreciate it. Awesome having you here. Excited to do the first kit in the US. That's really, really cool. And we'll make more videos, guys. We're going to get some wheels and tires on this suspension. We're going to build it like the last one we had. And I think one thing that's cool is I got to go from having that fully built Grenadier that we sold a couple weeks ago to completely stock again. And I got to see how everything felt again, right? So like I did that build, the truck got a little heavy, and I was thinking, I need the power brakes, I need the power brakes. And then I got in the stock vehicle and I said, okay, the brakes still aren't good. So it's not necessarily all the weight. So I'm excited for that. And excited for your company, man. You guys are doing awesome stuff. So thank you. Thank you, your family. Appreciate having you out here. And I think we'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.
Thanks.